It's easy to get disillusioned with ordinary life, but what if there's more to it than meets the eye?
Everyday, ordinary life is where extraordinary faith is built. It's where we actually get to walk with Jesus.
This podcast is all about looking at all of life, the highs, the lows, and plateaus, through the lens of a journey with Jesus.
Whoever you are, wherever you're at, God sees you and wants to walk with you.
Only when you choose to do life with Him does the ordinary become wonderful. Yo, 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 welcome back.
What's up, Whoa fam?
Whoa, fam. Welcome back to Wonderfully Ordinary. I'm your host, Sammy.
And I'm your co-host, Stesha.
Yup. Or Stusha.
Stisha.
Steshi.
Stacia. No, it's
Stisha.
No, it's either Stesha or my very special people can call me Steshi, Stesh, or Steshia.
Oh, yeah.
Someone
but that's
very special. Reserved for one person only.
one little person.
One little person.
Which means
If you're listening
like
to
a toddler. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, it is a toddler. If you're listening to this, shout out to you. I know that you know. We love you.
Okay, Sesha, you know what time it is? It's time for
High-Low Buffalo.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Do you want to start?
You know what, Sammy? I think that I started last time, so it's your turn.
You caught me. Okay, fine. I'll start. I love High-Low Buffalo, though. So let's think. One of my highs is that two of my friends from college, and I just went to college like about an hour away, so it's not that far, but two of them came down to visit me here. Normally I go up to West Palm, but they came to visit me here, and that was super sweet and fun. They came to church with me and stuff. So
Aw.
that was my high. We had Chipotle after, and then went to Wells Coffee.
Yes, shout out Wells.
Yeah.
You will
Always
probably
shout out.
always hear me saying that that's my favorite coffee shop.
And so that was my high. My low, honestly, this isn't even that like, intense or anything, but this week I had a little bit less work. So the days felt way longer because I had some less like intense work or even meetings.
Yeah.
And so it literally took forever to get to 5 o'clock. I was like, when can I go home?
That's funny because I had the opposite experience. I had
Oh my
so much to
goodness.
do that I was like, I'm running out of time. Can I have 10 more hours in the day? And I was like, the clock is moving way too fast. Slow down.
Yeah, it's funny how that could just be so different based on the person and what they have to do. But yeah, so let me think. That's my high and low. My buffalo was that I was on my way to see another friend this weekend, and I hadn't been to her place before, so she sent me her address, but she sent me the wrong one just by like one number. And so I
Oh,
still
no.
ended up like close to where her house was, but it led me to this boat shop. It was like boating gear.
Oh,
So
wow.
like the engine stuff. What is that called? Like it hangs off the boat with the little like wind looking thing. Like the fan.
The propeller?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you could say.
Definitely not where you were trying to go.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't even own a boat.
Yeah, as you can definitely tell. So it was just a random boat stuff. And then I was like, this definitely is not where she lives. Because the funny thing for me was that when I put it in the GPS, I saw that. And so I thought for a second, is this the right address? But then I gave her the benefit of the doubt because to me, I'm like, sometimes people live in really odd, unique places.
That's true. That's true.
Like, what if there was some place above the boat shop that was like apartments,
That is valid. Very, very true. Or
Thank
Sammy,
you for reassuring me.
you should have just
Should have
confirmed.
just confirmed, yeah. But anyways, that was really funny and random, and we had a good laugh from it. So she sent me the right address, and it was only like 4 minutes away. So
Aw,
Yeah.
that's sweet.
yeah, but that was my high-low buffalo.
That's sweet. Well, for my week, I didn't really have a low. Besides, apparently I did. I was just very busy, and then I felt like there was no time. So I guess we can say that was my low.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a good busy. It's good to be busy, clearly, because then you have the opposite problem where you're like
Bored in the house and in the house bored. Sorry, that audio.
Sammy's bored in the house.
That audio's not great,
Is
but
that from like COVID times?
yeah, that's why I thought it was so funny.
Wow.
But yeah, the full audio I don't recommend listening to, but that part of the audio is so funny.
Yeah, so I guess that was
Oh.
my low. My high was that I got to go on a swing set with like some of our favorite little kiddos of our like
Yeah.
coworkers' kids. And I kid you not, I don't think I've been on a swing set in years, and it was so
It
much
really
fun.
was.
So much fun. Very random. But it was definitely a highlight of the week. And then my buffalo was that I was at the beach with some friends from church, and we were playing not just Uno, we were playing Jumbo Uno. And I don't know if you knew, but they sell Uno cards that are like bigger than your face. They're
Yeah,
huge and they're
they're
like
huge.
thicker paper, and it's great for like the beach because they won't just fly away.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
I won twice in a row actually, and it was like a
Pop
surprise
off,
attack.
queen.
Like people did not see it coming. It was fantastic, and I normally don't win at games, so it was it was really fun. So that was my buffalo.
Oh my gosh, I won this last week too in a game. What's that game that we play Fridays?
Sky Joe, you guys.
Skyjo.
Sky Joe is our newest obsession.
Yeah, I hadn't even heard of it before.
Me neither.
And then our coworkers were like, "No, this is the game to
Where
have."
everyone's been put on it, and I literally bought it, and I have it in my room.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I do.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun. Yeah, I won for the first time and I was so proud.
It's great.
You basically need to have the least amount of numbers added up by the end of it, and I had like in the negatives, so I won by a lot.
Honestly, I think that Sammy was cheating.
Eh,
She
oh.
wasn't. But it felt like it because the girl, every time she'd flip a card, and this girl's sitting next to me, and she's like, -2, -1,
Yeah.
0. I'm like, are you kidding? I'm getting 12s and like 11s and 10s. I'm like, that could have been my card. But
Yeah.
whatever. That's already getting beyond the point. Hilo Buffalo, we love it. That was our weeks.
Yes.
But Sammy, I have such an important question for you.
Okay, hit me.
So, have you ever in your life kind of looked back and you're like, wait, that was not on my vision board? Like, when I imagined my life, this is not what I thought it was going to be.
Yes, definitely. Many, many times. Well, I feel like it's an interesting concept, vision boards. I haven't done one before, but
I have.
I
It's
would
pretty-
love to.
it's
Really, you
fun.
have?
Yeah. I think like a year ago, me and some friends, we like put together a vision board, and it's not like, this is not manifestation or manifesting something.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like more like putting, you can even see it like a prayer board. You're
Yeah.
putting the things that your goals on a board with like images or words. So we like went on
Yeah.
Pinterest and we like printed stuff out, or you could like buy like pre-made stickers and magazines and stuff. And you're more just like visualizing what you're praying for. Maybe the Lord has put dreams on your heart. And so you're just kind
Yeah.
of making a visual representation of what you're praying for, maybe your own dreams, or just like goals in general. Maybe you have like a 5-year plan or something for your life. So it's more just you have something physical to look at, and it doesn't live in your head. It's like, I'm a visual learner, so sometimes it's helpful for me to put it on paper, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think too for me, I haven't done one yet, but I would imagine it also as like a way to tangibly offer it to the Lord and say, okay,
Yes.
if you're going to change anything on here, then I'm okay with that. But
Very true.
this is, but in the same, like to answer your question, I feel like I think of very basically what I wanted to be when I grew up, like
Mhm.
at different ages of my life. So I want to hear yours too right after this. But for me, when I was probably in like kindergarten, Hannah Montana was a big deal.
Stop.
Yeah, and I was
I-
like, I want to be a singer, a pop singer who can like dance on stage,
Dude, me
perform
too.
all the things.
Well, you were a little dancer. Like, you love that life.
I definitely did like get on the stage for different sorts of shows and performances as a kid. So I actually was living that out, and so I really thought it could happen.
I literally owned a Hannah Montana wig and like a little mic.
Oh my gosh.
And like it had a DVD where
Everybody makes mistakes.
everybody has those days.
Okay.
I was like, I'm not gonna
I
finish
was like,
that.
wait, I forget if the rest of it. Everybody knows that.
What I'm talking about.
Everybody
Whatever.
has those days.
Yeah, we're terrible.
You know what else I
Focus.
think is funny from Hannah Montana? The different like riffs she would do. So when I worked at camp, I had a walkie-talkie with a few other of the staff, and there was a few times where we would jokingly get on and be, you would have to say like
Oh, yeah.
so and so go to
Ooh,
3.
yeah, yeah.
We would be like so and so go to 3, and the person would be like, oh. Wait, that was literally the one from. That was the Wicked one. I did that without even trying. But the Hannah
Anyways.
Montana one was like,
You wanted to be a pop star.
yeah. You see, I'm getting into it again already. Wow.
Sammy, move on.
That was my childhood one. What
Okay.
was your like childhood?
My childhood dreams were that, let's see, in kindergarten, I only know this because my mom kept some like kindergarten like artwork and stuff from school that like I don't know why, but we have it somewhere, and I just remember reading it as an older person. So this is not really a memory. I'm just talking off of something I saw that I know
Yeah.
is mine. Apparently, I wanted to be a ballerina. So
Oh, cute. I could see that.
yeah, so
So
either
elegant.
so like something like that, and then I think one other one. What else did I? Oh, also a teacher. Surprisingly,
Oh, cute.
I used to sit my brothers down, and I'd like make them go to school, and
Oh
I
my
teach
gosh,
them.
oldest sibling for
Yes.
real.
So I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay, another one that I will point out just because it's really cute. In second grade on my All About Me board, I
Yeah.
literally wrote down missionary, which is very
I
much
don't think
still.
I don't think I knew what the word missionary was in second grade. That's great.
Yeah.
That's so Sammy coded. I love it.
It very much is Sammy coded. So I still look back to that and I'm like, God knew what he was doing in my
Yeah.
little heart.
That's beautiful.
So that's beautiful. But then in middle school, I mean, this was still really cute. I have these journals starting from when I was in middle school that I've kept up since
Mhm.
then. And in middle school, I was a big band geek.
Wow.
Like that was my fine art for real, even though I still loved dancing and stuff. But I really realized I'm probably not the best singer. So in band, I played flute for maybe 4 years, 3,
Mm-hmm.
more so 3 that I competed. And I went to states and got like second and first like all those times. And then I also ended up playing some piano and some alto saxophone.
Wow.
So I just loved music and everything. And then my mom would only listen to K-Love, the radio station at the time.
I love K-Love. Wow. That was
Positive and encouraging
K-Love.
K-Love. But anyways, I literally have this journal I have to show you one day where I was writing down how thankful I am for music and how I one day want to be a composer for Christian music, maybe on K-Love. And then I was like, God, thank you for putting music in my blood. I can't. And I said something like, I can only do it to serve you. I was like, what?
Sammy, are you a musician today?
No. I mean, when I got to high school, I definitely just let it go very slowly but surely.
Mm.
And so I can still play all my major chords on a piano and tell you like where certain notes are and
Mhm.
stuff. And sometimes like read chords and then play chords, but
Mhm.
like the most basic 1, 3, 5. Like I can't just improvise and stuff. And then the flute I could pick up again because I still have it at home. I could
Mhm.
probably play something random, but again, it's just not there.
Wow.
So
That's cool. I didn't know
Yeah.
that you wanted to be a
Oh,
musical composer.
yeah.
That's really cool.
yeah, there's a lot of artsiness in me, but I've never fully developed anything specifically of it.
Uh-huh. That's totally what happens. When I was like a tween, I wanted to do 2 things. And this kind of like bled a little bit into high school, but I wanted to be a surgeon, specifically a
Ooh.
brain surgeon,
Oh my gosh.
because in my mind, real doctors are surgeons. I know that's not true, guys. I know that's not true. But in my mind, I'm like, you don't know anything unless you can cut open a human and not kill them. That in
Okay.
my mind
I mean,
means
that's
like
valid a
the
little
most
bit.
is if you can do surgery. And then in my mind also like the best type of surgeon would have to be a brain surgeon because you just have to have so much like skill and like your
Yeah.
hands really can't shake. You can literally kill someone.
Yeah.
So also I was watching Grey's Anatomy. At the time.
Okay, I was gonna ask what else because I feel like there's
This is a buffalo in itself. But you know what ninth graders Stasha would do during lunch? Maybe I was a pick me, I'm not sure. But
oh no.
I downloaded an app that literally taught you and let you practice digitally on how to do surgery. So I learned how to do an appendectomy. I can't even see, how was I supposed to be a doctor if I can't even say the word? Anyways, to take out an appendix and do the surgery. So I like
Dang.
learned the processes and the steps, and it was entertaining.
Yeah, that is so
Oh
entertaining.
man, I'm such a weirdo, but it was
No,
so
no,
much
no.
fun.
I think it's like so wholesome though to look back on what you wanted
Yeah.
to do.
And then I quickly realized that to be a surgeon, I'd have to go through a lot of school. I
Mm.
wouldn't then have my real dream was to become a wife and a mother. And I knew that probably wouldn't have happened as easily as I wanted it to if I was a surgeon. So I was like, that's okay, I won't be a surgeon. And
Yeah.
also biology was annoying, though I love dissecting things. That was my
Oh,
favorite
yeah.
thing ever in class.
I mean, I also love dissecting things. I mean, we'll get into this in a minute, but did you say there's one other thing?
Yes, and then my
Yeah.
other dream was that I wanted to this is now already getting into high school, but when I was trying to decide what I was going to do in college, I was convincing myself that since I grew up a musician, so I played piano my whole life and violin, I just, I never, nothing ever, except for like film and stuff, nothing stuck out to me. And I didn't think that film was a good enough career or that, like, it's
Yeah.
either you're a doctor, you're a teacher, you're a lawyer, like a nurse, police officer, like film, like that's not a real career. And so I was trying to figure out what to do in college. And I was like, well, my cousins do piano performance. So I was really close to doing piano performance
Yeah. Wow.
until my dad affirmed my dream, was like, no, you want to do film, go pursue film. And so I was like, you know what,
Aw,
I went full in and decided to do film, but I was
that's
this
so
close
sweet.
to do piano performance. But then I knew that my anxiety would never actually let me perform, so I'd become a piano teacher, and that was my worst nightmare. So I was like, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's funny you wanted to be a surgeon because I also thought about going into the medical field in high school.
Hmm.
I was on this STEM track and taking these classes that I thought were
Wow.
so cool, like
That's cool.
about the human body and stuff. And I genuinely did love it. But then I just started to realize that it's because I'm a big nerd. Like, I love learning. And I thought
Mm.
it was so cool to learn about the human body. But then I went and I even competed in this club that was about like health professionals, like future health professionals in
Yeah.
America. And I went all the way to nationals one year for
No
physical
way.
therapy. Yeah.
Wow.
And I had to take a test and then do some sort of reenactment challenge for physical therapy. So they would give me, a patient problem and I'd have to teach them how to walk this certain step or whatever,
Oh, that's cool.
or wrap this or something. And so I was doing that, went to nationals, and at nationals, I was really praying because it was the summer before my senior year. I was like, God, I don't know if I need to go into this field or pursue like other things. And I really do want to go into like vocational ministry.
Mm.
And then he just helped me see on that trip that I just like learning to learn. And he has other gifts that he wants me to pursue. So it was not the medical field. And that really panned it out well because there's been quite a handful of moments where in medical situations around me, I've passed out because I just can't really handle it that well. So God knew
Little
before
did
I
you
even
know.
knew that would not be great for
Isn't that
me.
great that our God is sovereign? Like, and
Yeah.
He knows all and
Yeah.
and overall. So
Exactly.
He already knew.
Yeah.
You're just not quite there yet.
Yeah. Well, the reason we're talking about this is just because it's really fun and I feel like relatable to look back on your life and see how you had certain expectations or dreams that didn't pan out.
And some that maybe did.
And some that did, and
Mhm.
some that were genuinely God like putting this in your heart because He wanted you to have that for later. But it also gets a little bit more difficult when you are, at least for us, in your 20s and
Mhm.
you are faced with, oh my gosh, wait, my plans aren't working how I thought. And now I feel like I really don't know what the heck I'm doing with my life. And everyone that I've met, I'm just honest with, like, I don't really know. Like, I
Mhm.
do know because I've done a lot of prayer and trying to explore with the Lord how He's made me. But then at the end of the day, I think there's something really freeing in saying, like, I don't have it all figured out.
It's like, wow, that really was not on my vision board.
Exactly. So,
It's really freeing, and it's crazy even to look back because, to be honest, I'm 25 now,
mhm.
and I was convinced, at least when I was like 16, 17, 18, that by 25 I'd be married and have my first kid. And I
Wow.
thought that that was like the path that the Lord was going to take me on, because that was the path that He was taking other people, my family,
Mhm.
on, right? And so it was a little like shocking when like 21 comes around, 22, 23, 24, not married, no kid. But I now can look back.
No, man.
Sammy, let's not talk about this today.
Sorry,
But-
I'm in the same boat,
I love
but
that. But the Lord, Sammy, I'm trying to talk about the Lord here and
Yeah,
what
yeah.
He's done.
No,
I'm just
exactly,
joking.
exactly.
But it's been so beautiful because within all of this, God has revealed that He says, Stasha, that will come. Don't be like hasteful. Don't like, at this moment, we are not trying to make haste. Slow down.
Mhm.
That will all come in the future. But look at all the things that I've done in your life that you couldn't have done if you were married. You had a 2-year-old with you. Not saying that that's a bad thing to be in that season. It's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
beautiful thing. But the Lord has brought me through so much that I just didn't know. And it just took a lot of like, realizing like, hey God, like I'm opening my hands to you and to what I think my life should be going like,
Yeah.
and you take me on this adventure with you. And boy, has he taken me on an adventure. It's been just so beautiful. And I'm like, wow, God, you really knew what you were doing. And I'm
Yeah.
very, very grateful that A, you answered some prayers, B, other prayers you said no to, and some prayers you have just said not yet.
Yes, exactly. And I think it's really important to try and hold on to some of these nuggets of truth that
Hmm.
hopefully you get from our conversation today, especially honestly in any season of life.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, in every season of life, there's going to be something else you're looking ahead to
Hmm.
and something that you're maybe hoping
Always.
for.
Always. That never stops.
Yeah. And the thing that we have to always be on guard against is if the thing that we're looking forward to or hoping for becoming an idol.
Yeah.
And if it's taking the place of God or
Hmm.
of what he's asked us to hope in,
Yeah.
you
You
know?
never want whatever promise God has made you to A, become an idol, or for you to ever resent the Lord if it doesn't happen the way you think it should happen.
Yeah.
Because we do not know God's plan. And I think that a great story that kind of talks about that is Joseph. So,
Mm-hmm.
Joseph
In the Old
in the
Testament.
Old Testament. So, Joseph in the Old Testament, if you are familiar with the story or if you've watched the DreamWorks representation of it,
Again.
again, they knew what they were doing back then. I love it.
Yeah.
But Joseph had a dream that the Lord placed on his heart.
Mm-hmm.
And that dream was speaking of the future, but he got that dream years before it ever was
With
fulfilled.
so many obstacles along
So
the
many
way.
obstacles. He was essentially like shown a dream that his brothers would be bowing down to him in a way. And he's in this position, like, well, that's not going to happen today. And what he had to go through from being sold into slavery by his own brothers, from ending up in Pharaoh's palace and working for Pharaoh of Egypt, to then being wrongfully accused of a crime he did not commit, to then being thrown into a dungeon. All of that had to happen. He probably was sitting there, God, you gave me this dream, but like, why is this all happening? Doesn't make
Yeah.
sense, you know?
Yeah, for real. And I think it's important too to really try and contextualize what that's such a big word, but basically put into context those stories
Hmm.
because for us, sometimes I think I've been guilty of this too. There are moments where I convince myself that a dream I have is from God when it really isn't.
Yes.
And so
Hmm.
we need to be able to have that discernment. Like for Joseph, he was given this dream multiple times in different ways.
Hmm.
And even then, along the way, even though there would have been a lot of times for him to be like, God, I don't know if what you said was true. I'm so confused. Why is this happening? He kept reassuring him and reminding him and putting people in his life to just direct him, right?
Hmm.
And then, even in those moments of doubt he might have had, I'm sure he was still surrendering and trusting to the Lord. But we don't know all those details. And I think for me, something I've been challenged with in the last few years, especially through college, is like, okay, you know what I need to start praying? I need to start praying, Lord, give me your dreams for my life
Mm.
and your desires for my life,
Mhm.
because then that's what that verse in Psalm, I think it's 37 means, that delight in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. It doesn't
Yes.
mean he will give you the object of your desire,
Hmm.
like the way that you're expecting it, but he will literally put desires into your heart that are from him, that are holy, that are good, that are part of his plan for you. And
Exactly.
so I think that's just been something that I've had to challenge myself with whenever I feel like I'm getting discontent or confused about why my plan isn't going to plan, because normally it's just because God's ways are higher than ours and his thoughts are higher than ours. And he might be taking his time because he has other things that he wants us to do or to experience or to learn from before we
Right.
get to point A, point B, whatever.
He might be preparing you for the dream that he's placed on your heart, the
Yeah.
prayers that you're praying. And if you were to get them too early, it wouldn't be the prayer, wouldn't come to fulfillment of how it
Yeah.
needs to be. So there's definitely sometimes a delay is not bad and
Yeah,
it is very
exactly.
purposeful. I think that sometimes you might be wondering, like, can I trust God when the dreams look delayed or maybe a little distorted? You're like, I know I have this dream, but like, I think it's from God, but it doesn't seem to be coming um to fulfillment as fast as I think it should or when I
In
think
the
it should,
way
in
you
the
think
way I
it
think it
is.
should. And I
Yeah.
think there's a few things that we need to like um just kind of keep in the back of our minds. And I'm going to read a quote from the book The Circle Maker by Mark Batterson. It's a great book. I've been reading this, and it's essentially just about prayer. And it's really shifted in how I view prayer in a way, and even convicted me in some ways. And I just think it's a beautiful book. And this one part of the book, he just puts it so beautifully. And I was like, whoa, like I never really thought about this. But he writes, if God answered those selfish prayers, they would actually short circuit the purposes of God in our lives. We would fail to learn the lessons God is trying to teach us or cultivate the character God is trying to shape in us.
Mm,
A second lesson is that no doesn't always mean no. Sometimes no means not yet. We're too quick to give up on God when He doesn't answer our prayers when we want or how we want. Maybe your deadline doesn't fit God's timeline. Maybe no simply means not yet. Maybe it's a divine delay.
that's so
And
good.
when I read like divine delay, I was like underlining all this stuff. And it's crazy when I think about a divine delay is even my own life is the fact of my sister. I feel like I talk about her a lot, but truly love the girl. But I wanted a sister my whole life. I have two brothers, and my mom wanted another baby, and my dad, obviously.
Yeah.
But before my sister even came about, my mom had 4 miscarriages. And it's
Mm,
crazy because we were all praying. Like I was praying at night. I remember my mom and dad were praying,
yeah.
and this was something that we were praying for, but it kept not happening.
Yeah.
And now that I'm looking back, I can never imagine if she would have been born any sooner or even any later. We didn't know if that prayer was going to be answered. And
Mm,
sometimes I feel like, I don't know if it will, like 1 miscarriage, 2, 3, 4.
yeah.
But then when the Lord is like, now is the right time, it was the perfect time.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. And I think like what the Lord brought to my mind as you were saying that is this idea that sometimes what we are longing for or a dream we might have or something we just want, right? It can be pleasing to God. Like wanting to get married and have a family, that is pleasing. That's a
Hmm.
good thing to want. It's not bad, right?
Right.
Like you can want and dream good
Hmm.
things, but then at the end of the day, you always have to hold those things with open hands because God has a different idea sometimes of what he wants to give you.
Hmm.
And so I don't know, there's just so many stories I've heard of people who've wanted kids and they can't have them, but then God blesses them with kids they get to foster and adopt,
Yeah.
you know? And so there's just different ways that he answers things. And then sometimes what he's been showing me is that I need to surrender those back to him so that then he can put maybe a different version of that dream in my heart. You
Hmm.
know, like maybe when I was a kid, I wanted to be a missionary, right? I still have that like desire and passion. I love missions and just the idea of getting to serve the global church. But right now, the Lord has me here in my home area and not on the mission field, quote unquote, like in another country, but right here. And right here, I'm getting to still live on mission, but I'm getting to help teach a class and write a curriculum about missions. And then
Hmm.
I'm getting to support my friends who are in other countries by reading their letters to me in the
Yeah.
mail, supporting them financially and with my prayers. And my dream that's shifted just a little bit is that one day maybe I could help create curriculum or resources that can be sent to churches around the world that can equip people to follow Jesus in other contexts, you know?
I love that.
Yeah, I think that something else God's taught me is that when we have too specific expectations for our life in any area, it's almost like we, without realizing it, take the place of God
Hmm.
and try to write out our own story and how everything's going to unfold. And oh my goodness, I thankfully realized this probably in high school, but it's helped me like be aware of it for the last few years because it's so bad for me. I'm such an imaginative person. Like I could just live in my brain sometimes. And that's why I like reading because it's just like TV show in my head, you know? And so sometimes when I'm like going to bed, I don't know if you guys know, like do this, but
Do
I'll
you
just like
like
imagine things.
daydream? Like the moment that I'm gonna meet my future husband, we're gonna be in a
Just
coffee
all
shop.
these
He's gonna
different
look up at
things.
me, and then
It's literally so funny. And I'll just do that for a lot of things. Like sometimes it's a rom-com theme and sometimes it's just me like just reminiscing on something I got to experience in the past, but just
Mm.
like changing it up. And maybe I'm older, maybe I'm with like kids, and
Yeah.
maybe I'm with different friends. And it's just like very much crazy in my imagination. It can be really good, but also it
It can be a little
definitely goes hand
dangerous.
in hand with my overthinking
Yeah.
because I'm such an overthinker and I will think of every possible scenario and I really need to rein it in sometimes.
It's almost like you're over planning God out of your life a little bit. Like
Uh-huh.
you're like, okay, I've already written the story. So God, if you don't stick to it, I'm gonna be disappointed. And
Yes.
I don't think
And
that you can't
that
do that.
exactly. And that gets me upset because that was me. And
Mm-hmm.
now I'm much better at controlling that. But I get really upset because I will get annoyed at myself when I do that. Because then I'm like, no, Samantha. I pull out the full
Samantha.
name, the full name. I'm like, Samantha, you need to stop because I believe firmly that the Lord is always going to surpass your quote unquote expectations because He is good and He
Yes.
is great and He is so big and mighty and sovereign. But the expectation, in quotation mark, shouldn't be this detailed, specific plan of how everything's going to happen. That is just pretty much your own game plan for your life. No, an expectation is just an idea of, oh, I think that this is going to be cool and this is going to be good. Like, some high hopes. But God surpassing your expectations basically is you saying, okay, Lord, I have some hope for this. And,
Mm-hmm.
I have faith that you're going to be good and you're going to come through. But I'm also just holding it open handedly. Whenever you hold anything open handedly, God will surpass your expectations because you're not putting limits on Him.
Yeah. You
That's
can't
what
put God in a
happens.
box.
Exactly. And when
Yeah.
you put limits on Him by intricately imagining and planning everything in your life, then you're going to end up disappointed because you were honestly just trying to be God and put limits on Him by giving Him this like whole game plan when
Right.
He's like, no, 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 no. I want to surpass your expectations by showing you that I am God and I am outside of the boxes you're creating for me.
And as the saying goes, you're almost shooting yourself in the foot because
Yeah.
we cannot ever fathom or imagine to the extent of what God can do because we
Yeah.
have finite minds, and you might be um letting go or not like allowing God to do something that is so incredible in your life because we
Mhm.
just can't even imagine it. And I love the verse Proverbs 16:9 where it says we can make our plans but the Lord determines our steps.
Yeah.
And, like, it's not bad to plan, like, you obviously can't just sit in your house and not have any plans and do
Yeah.
nothing because the Lord does want you to work,
And
like
to be a good steward of your time and of your
correct.
resources.
But
So,
you also have to be open-handed that you will walk in the steps that the Lord has already drawn out for you and follow them because He's God.
yeah.
He's already written your story, and it's just, like, a beautiful picture of, like, surrendering, being like, "Okay, Lord, like, I'm gonna make plans, but keep your plans loose because they might be transformed in a blink of an eye, and it can transform your life, but it will be an incredible transformation."
Yeah. Something I just was reminded of is in the time I spent interning with Samaritan's Purse, something that they talk about a lot, specifically because the founder, oh, now I forget his name, Bob something. And the founder and then who's the CEO or like,
Yeah.
boss right now is Franklin Graham. And in their story from when they were younger and following Jesus, they had this term they used that has been carried down. It's called God room.
Mm.
And so they basically talk about how we're going to prepare and train and have everything planned as much as we can because we are going to be faithful stewards of what God's given us. And they do a lot of international relief work. So there's examples of we're going to go into this war-torn area. We're going to have these medical kits, this medical tent set up. We're going to have the doctors that and nurses that we can send, whatever. We're going to plan this and this as much as
Mhm.
we can. But then any other obstacle that comes up that seems too big to face, we're going to leave room for God. So they
Yeah.
call it God room. So we're going to do the most that we can. And then from there, God takes over the rest. And they have like story after story of maybe not having the funds, but they do what they can with what they have. And then miraculously, like funds
Yes.
come through, right? Or
Mhm.
I don't know, just showing up in a country that wasn't going to let them in, but they came prepared because they were trusting that God would make a way if he wanted to, and if not, they would go back. And they show up and then they're
Mm-hmm.
let in, and they're like the only ones there able to work, and that's because they're leaving room for God to show up.
I absolutely love like the whole concept of like God room, and
Yeah.
that's so cool. But now I think we should move into kind of some practical steps because maybe you're
Yeah.
listening, you're like, okay, I agree, I love that, cool, but like how?
Yeah.
How do I do this?
Mhm.
So there are just like some things that just over my very short years of life that I have learned and that we have kind of learned through whether it's scripture or awesome like resources like books or people. But one thing that kind of came to mind when I was kind of thinking about this topic, and this just I learned very recently, is kind of praying and if you've been in church and they're like, oh, open your hands to like receive. So that's a part of it. But I think one thing that we can also do first is to let go.
Mhm.
And to do that, this is now when you're doing this, you're not saying like, oh, because I did this, like there's some magical like
Yeah.
power. That's not what it's about. I think it's more of just like a physical representation of what you feel in your heart and what you're asking
Yes.
God.
Yeah.
And I'm like the type who needs like a physical, visual reminder. And it's almost like how you pray on your knees
Yeah.
is you're surrendering to the Lord. You praying on your knees or on your bed, prayer is prayer. God hears it the same, but there's
Yeah.
something about physically putting yourself in a posture to surrender to the Lord.
Yeah.
So first, what you would do is start with your hands facing down. So kind of put them out and face down. And this is kind of like symbolizing like God, I know that you are sovereign and you are good, and I'm going to let go. Like
Mhm.
almost imagine whatever you're holding, you're letting go. Hands
Yeah.
are wide open, right?
And name those
Name
things.
those things. Like, God, I know that you are sovereign over my life and what my job is going to be. I'm letting that go to you.
Mhm.
God, I know that I want to get married. I'm letting that go to you. God, I really want to go on this missions trip, but I don't have the funds for it. I don't know how I'm going to
Yeah.
afford it. Letting that go to you. And
Mhm.
you can name, here's a line, X, whatever, fill in the blank, whatever it is that you're seeking for. It could
Yeah.
be anything. So I'm just letting go of control.
Mhm.
Once you have put your heart in the posture, okay, God, I'm letting this control go, you flip your hands over and now they're faced up. And this is symbolizing, like, okay, God, like, I know that you're good, you're sovereign. I am sitting here open handed and willing to receive whatever it is that your will is. But you also have to think, like, God, it is not about those things. It's not about like the physical objects that you might
Mhm.
get from God that God might bless you with. But you really have to think about the promises that God makes in scripture. And ultimately, this is what is important. This is what we should be thinking about in the end is how good God is, how holy he is, how
Yeah.
much grace he has for you, how much love. And ultimately what leads is like the sacrifice on the cross to heaven and that is our ultimate destination and
Yeah.
whatever happens within God's will should always point back to him. So
Yeah.
it really doesn't matter what happens as long as it is in God's will. So I'm just like, I'm open handed, Lord, and I receive your will. And I want my wants to be what you want for me and not whatever I've imagined.
Yeah. And something else I've done, because I've done this exercise too, is trying to think through and let the Holy Spirit remind you of all the promises he does say in
Hmm.
scripture. Because there are promises in scripture that you can quote from different verses, and most of them are not even about objects at all, but they're about relationship.
Hmm.
And so it's like, I receive that your presence is with me always, that
Hmm.
you never will leave me or forsake me. I receive the truth that you give me your peace, you give me your joy, you give me your love and mercy every day. I receive the truth that I have an eternity set with you in the future, you know? And those are the things that should anchor us. And I think another practical tip is just being able to ask yourself in prayerful moments with the Lord, just at any time, the hard questions.
Mm,
So for me, one of the hardest questions would be, okay, if this thing that I want to happen doesn't happen ever, if God says no, like that's not what I have for you,
right.
how am I going to respond to that? Am I going to be
Oh.
so
Mm.
heartbroken that I just turn away from God, that I completely distrust him forever and I walk away? Am I going to be so pitiful and like sad for myself that I
Mhm.
can't even take joy in Jesus or in what he has given me? You
Mhm.
know, like asking myself that really exposes if what I'm longing for has become more important than my relationship with Jesus.
Yeah, you have to it honestly comes down to, is this what I'm wanting an idol in my life?
Yeah.
And that is a really hard question to ask because none of us want to think like idol. Well, an idol is like a physical object that I pray and bow down to. An
Yeah.
idol is sure that can be an idol,
Yeah.
but in today's like day of age, like idols go beyond that. I could be idolizing my future. I could be
Yeah.
idolizing a person. I could be
Yeah.
idolizing a career that I want or a
Yeah.
specific outcome that I want. And you don't ever want to let your prayers or your dreams and wants to become an idol where they are
Yeah.
above God and come before him.
Yeah, and ultimately what you're asking or what you're trying to evaluate is if you believe Jesus is enough. Do I
Mm,
believe Jesus is enough?
yeah.
And I need to keep checking my heart to make sure that I keep choosing that he's enough. Because on my own, I'm imperfect and so impatient, and I will want what I want,
Yeah.
And I have to have the discipline to every day take time and say, Lord, here is
Right.
everything. I surrender. I choose you. I love you. And I just want to receive your love and I want to continually choose that you're enough because you are. And I've
Yeah.
experienced you to be enough. So I'm going to keep saying that over myself. So asking yourself those hard questions, is what I'm wanting actually going to please God?
Right.
Am I wanting it for the right reasons or just because it's going to bring me this, and that?
Mhm.
Or am I wanting maybe this good thing for selfish reasons,
Right.
And so just there's a lot of questions you can ask yourself that I think the Lord will be pleased with when you're trying to like ask yourself the right questions, ask him the right questions, because then he is going to expose in your heart those areas that he needs to work on and that you need to give to him and that you need to grow in. So don't be afraid to ask yourself those questions and to ask God to refine you.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think like surrender, it's not a weakness. It's
No.
it's a sign of faith, and it
Yeah.
does take a lot of faith to surrender
Yeah.
because it's just as humans, we want to control everything. We think we
Yeah.
know what is best. And another practical way that I feel like helps me to evaluate myself, if you will, along with prayer, is keeping a prayer journal or even a prayer box.
Mhm.
So a prayer journal, I this is something I just started doing recently, maybe in the last 6 months, and it's truly been I don't want to say life transforming, but it has been
Yeah.
because just as humans, and I mean, you look through scripture, God is always telling his people, remember, do this in remembrance.
Yeah.
And we can pray in our heads, but then that prayer, like God could answer it. He could say no, he can say not yet. You just forget, right? So writing it down or putting reminders of it in a box or something for you to look back on in the future is very, very helpful, at least for me, because I have terrible memory. I have memory of a fish. Like Dory is my twin. Um, but it's so helpful because I could never remember the prayers that I prayed. Like I have a journal that I prayed a prayer 6 months ago, and I was just looking back at my prayer journal recently, and I was like, whoa, wait, God answered that. Like I didn't even like really think about it like an extra
Yeah.
time. But I was like, look how God worked. And then there were other prayers, I was like, oh, God definitely did not answer that. But that
I'm glad.
prayer, A, I'm glad. And B, that prayer led me to go through something that then grew me and transformed me into a better person because of it.
Exactly.
Then now I'm praying new prayers that have like either been answered or I'm still waiting on. And it's just like a great way to keep a log and remind yourself just because we are very prone to forget.
Mhm.
And God is always moving. You just have to be mindful to look because we frankly don't. I don't
Yeah.
like it's so sad, but we don't.
Yeah. I think too, similarly, I have a prayer box, but it's kind of more like a keepsake box too.
Mhm.
I got it or I started it in high school. And so I have different letters or printed out things in
Mhm.
there. One of them is an email that I wrote to some author from Proverbs 31 Ministries because I really loved their
Oh,
writing.
wow.
And I was like, how did you become a writer? I love writing, all these things. I was probably like in seventh grade. And she wrote back to me and answered in full detail, like pages worth. And I was like, wow, this
Wow.
is so nice of her. And now I get to be a writer. So it's so cool how sometimes God will give you like the little tiny seed of a dream and then he grows it to be something really awesome
Yeah.
that you didn't expect. But then again, it just is this continual back and forth between, Lord, I trust you, so I'm going to take steps in this direction, but I
Mhm.
also am living and surrendered to you because if you want to redirect me, then I know you will. And that's happened so many times to me where I look back at my prayer journals from a few months ago, a year ago, a couple years ago, and the entries I had there are parts of it that God has brought to fruition, like parts of it
Mhm.
that he went beyond my expectations for how he was going to bring
Right.
me to a certain place. But then there are parts of it that I'm like, wow, I'm glad his answer was no there. I'm glad that he chose to lead me this direction instead. And also, I will just laugh sometimes because I'm like, wow, I really was so hung up on praying this way or praying this prayer,
Yeah.
praying for this thing. And God changed my prayer. And
Yes.
sometimes that's the most transformative part of prayer is that the Lord will change you in prayer and he will change the way you pray sometimes. And even when you don't know what to pray, the Holy Spirit, it says in Romans 8, he prays and intercedes on our behalf. So when we might be praying the wrong way, and not that there's a wrong way to pray, but let's say you're praying for a certain job to come through, but really that's not where God's going to have you
Mhm.
and he wants you somewhere else. So you're praying for something that ultimately is going to be maybe a no or whatever. You know, that sort of thing. The Holy Spirit's interceding on your behalf and he's talking to God and saying, "I pray that you would grow in Sammy the skills that she needs for this future thing that she doesn't even know she's going to be doing yet."
Right.
And that is so comforting.
It is so comforting. And I just love that God will even like be gracious enough to redirect our steps.
Yeah.
And you really do have to be open-handed to accept those redirections and not be like hung up and stuck on what you think you want
Yeah.
and be like, no, I'm not going to go that way. Because God might have you going like, okay, yeah, keep going, keep walking forward, keep walking forward. And you're like, okay, I think that what I want is all the way at the very end walking
Yeah.
forward. But God is like, you're getting closer. He's like, now make a slight turn right. You're like, wait, but I thought I was supposed to keep walking forward. He's like, no, now you've walked forward how much I need you to walk forward. Now turn right.
Yeah.
And true surrendering is like, okay, God, I don't really know where we're going,
Yeah.
but bet I'll
Yeah,
turn right.
exactly. And so hopefully that's encouraging to you and also challenging. I think that it's really important to look at scripture and just the truth that God gives us
Always.
and
Mhm.
to let it both pierce our hearts but also encourage our hearts.
Yes.
And that's exactly what he gave us his word and his spirit for. So hopefully you can laugh at yourself like we have with the things that we've tried to predict or plan.
Yeah.
But also, we hope that you will genuinely come before the Lord with all of your plans and dreams open handedly and just let Him surpass your expectations and take you where He wants you to go, not where you think
Yes.
you should go.
And if you're sincerely like coming to God with a sincere heart and you are truly open, He will 100% like outshine your dreams because what God has for you is so much better because He's God
Yeah.
and He has the most perfect will. So
Yeah. And it's for Him and for others. Like, it's not just about us.
that's the most beautiful part.
Yeah. But anyways, we hope that you enjoyed today and we can't wait to see you guys next week. So
Have a wonderfully ordinary week.
bye.
Bye.